Welcome back to Bookview TV. Now, in the last episode of this program, I talked a little bit about the beginning of the creation of the book, Billionaire Boys Election Freak Show. We've gone through 3 of the ebooks. The first ebook that I created was Lipstick on This Pig, which sort of described the election process, followed by the Vagina Wars, which discussed the war on women, and then that was followed by the Vagina Wars on Steroids, which went to look at how the whole war on women was now expanded to include everyone of color. And as I mentioned before at the start of this, the 500-pound elephant in the room was the issue of the Mormon president, or the potential Mormon president. Now, this was something that nobody wanted to touch because a person's religious choice is indeed their own choice, and it should be kept off limits from most discussions. And yet there were elements of Mormon theocracy and theology that were quite disturbing. It was very clear that Mitt Romney and several other leaders were looking at trying to establish under the guise of the church hierarchy, a much stronger theocratic nation underneath his particular religious belief. And at the very least, people needed to see it for what it was. People needed to understand what Mormon prophecy was, about the Book of Mormon, about Joseph Smith. And nobody was really talking about this because every time it was mentioned, the media would quickly be hushed into silence because of the control of the corporate media in the United States. So as I began to put the book together, I spoke to a number of Mormons and began to read several books and had several of them on the program, and also looked at all of the issues around what a Mormon presidency might be. I wanted to hear both pro and con. And that became the book Magic Underwear in the Situation Room. That was the 4th and final ebook, and that was released just prior to the convention season beginning in the month of August. I wanted people to understand exactly where we were going with this and what all of this would mean. So we wanted to clearly outline all of the ways in which this might happen, and we did that in the 4th and final book. So once those 4 books were together, we decided that as the election got closer, we would combine the 4 of them together so that people could see from way back in January, with the start of Lipstick on This Pig, all the way through the Vagina Wars on Steroids, to the Muslim question, how the 2012 campaign unfolded. So literally a week before election, we put them all together in the book Billionaire Boys Election Freak Show. This was really designed to show everybody all of the ways in which the money and the politics and the power were coming together, and really to show how much money was at stake here. When all was said and done, it was about $7 billion that was spent to get through this particular election. It was an obscene amount of money and an obscene amount of power by a very small group of people. Now you might ask, how were they allowed to do that? Well, there was a Supreme Court decision called Citizens United, and that happened back in 2010. And what it did was it unleashed an incredible amount of money into the system. That, plus a Washington, D.C. District Court decision, basically took away all the rules. So basically, if I had a lot of money, if I was a millionaire or a billionaire, and I wanted to go to the trouble of setting up a super PAC, I could give as much money as I wanted to any campaign candidate at any point in time. Now, they say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That was definitely the case here. They were getting out there with lots of money, and the big fear was that any message would be lost completely. If you go back to the 2010 election, it had a huge impact as lots of money was spent in the various states. Those states ended up with huge majority Republican legislatures, and any state that was a red state became firmly a red state, and that's where they began to experiment with all of these laws against women's reproductive rights and breaking unions and. So money had a huge role to play, and we just wanted to discuss that, and I wanted to put it out there. Now here we are, the election is over. We've had roughly 8 months now of Barack Obama's second presidency. Nothing has changed. Indeed, if anything, the Republican Party has become even more intransigent. So we're looking at a situation where there's another election, a midterm election coming up a little over 18 months from now, and that's going to be a fairly significant contest, because whether or not the United States is able to advance anything legislatively is going to be dependent on how well the president's party does moving this thing forward. So there's likely to be another series of e-books coming out as we head in towards the midterms, and we've found this to be a very, very good way of letting folks know what's going on. So the titles, if you wish to buy them individually, are Lipstick on This Pig. That was originally produced back in January. It talks about the process. Then the second book was The Vagina Wars, which really went into detail into the war on women. That came out a couple of months later, around about March or April. Then we had The Vagina Wars on Steroids, which really went not only into the war on women, but went into the war on African Americans, Hispanic voters, voting rights, basically the rest of the 99%. Then the fourth book in the series was Magic Underwear in the Situation Room, which looked at the prospects of Mormonism in the White House. Would that have an impact on advancing both the church and their desires moving forward? The four books were compiled into the granddaddy of them all, the Billionaire Boys Election Freak Show. So all five of those titles are still available on Amazon.com and Amazon.co.uk. I hope you'll take a look at them and consider getting one for yourself. So next week, for certain, we know who the guest is going to be. We'll leave that a surprise for you just coming up. But we will have somebody sitting across the Skype table from me here on Bookview TV. Thank you very much for watching. And thank you also for being a little bit forgiving of me hawking my own wares here. And have a great night.